Welcome back, guys, to another episode in my Sprinter van build along. Today I'm going to give you a quick tour of my electrical setup that's behind me. This is in no way a how-to video. Now that is for a lot of reasons, but mainly because there is just so much to go through, and I don't want to also give any bad advice, more importantly. But yeah, you can find a 20-minute video on each individual component, quite rightly so, on YouTube. So running you through an actual how-to would be totally impossible. But what I am going to do is bring you some advice, which a lot of people seem to totally miss out when they're talking about designing a van electrical setup. I was self-taught. And what I mean by that is I watched a hell of a lot of videos on YouTube and kind of gave it a go. But I also came across my own problems and some things, and sometimes I just could not get the answer on YouTube, because someone will show you a product, but your scenario might be slightly different. Trying to find someone that's got the exact scenario and has done a decent enough walkthrough is absolutely impossible. So I found myself, and this is why I love social media and Instagram, I found myself hooking up with TINYBUILDELECTRICS. Tom, I'll put a link to his company below. You can go from ordering schematics to a whole electrical design. He supplies products as well, but you can go right down to just having a half an hour consultation. Now that's what I did. I got all the components that I wanted or needed. I bought a couple from Tom, like I said, to make sure I was getting things correct. And then I wrote down a hell of a lot of questions, and we had a meeting on Teams, and I blasted all of the questions that I could think of in half an hour. And he also made me aware of things that I was totally unaware of. So absolutely worth its weight in gold. At the moment, at the middle of 2021, I don't think he'll mind me saying, I think a half an hour consultation was about 30 quid, paid via PayPal. That is absolutely pennies, considering he could save you from damaging a potentially £900 battery or setting fire to your van, something like that. If you've got any queries, hook up with Tom at TINYBUILDELECTRICS, because he's pulled me out of the proverbial a couple of times. So as you guys know, this is the second time I've done my van. It was overweight, and I knew that an easy way of shedding some pounds was to get rid of the 3 100 amp hour AGM batteries. It was 90 kilos in total. I opted to go for a lithium battery, naturally, 15 kilos for 100 amp hours. It's a SUPERPACK. I'll get into that in a minute. So I've got 100 amp hours, 80 amp hours of usable energy, let's call it. For me, I think, it's a bit of a test run over the next couple of months, I think that's going to be more than enough, and there's a reason for that. I put my van into 2 categories, and this is the most important bit of advice I can offer, is to work out exactly what you want. Don't get sucked in by the people that are showing these massive battery banks on their Instagram and things like that, and thinking that you have to go down that road as well, because you don't. I've got 100 amp hours. So like I say, my van is used for 2 different reasons. One, I go out on my own. No frills campsites where they just say, yeah, go down there, you can have a fire, do what you like. If I'm on my own, all I want is cold beer and to charge my phone at night. I sit out by the fire, eat out there, all that kind of thing. All I want is cold beer, maybe a light, charge my iPad if it's bad weather and I watch a bit of TV. No massive power consumption whatsoever. I don't charge a laptop, I don't need to do that. I'm not working out on the road or anything like that. I edit videos when I get home. So I don't need any off-grid power necessarily. Phase 2, I go out with the family. When I go out with the family, arguably we use a lot more, but we end up somewhere with facilities, you know, a family-friendly campsite, that kind of thing, and then we're plugged in. The fridge takes over 240 straight away, so it doesn't even use the battery, and immediately it's being charged up by a 30 amp Victron smart charger. So power, when I go away with the family, is totally irrelevant. I may even be going for air conditioning later on in the year, maybe in the winter, ready for next season. But again, that will be powered via 240 when I'm on a hookup only. I'm not going to try and power that by batteries. I think that's insane. I don't need to go down that road. I want to offer air conditioning for the family because I've been to France and it was 38-40 degrees and it was absolutely disgusting. When I'm on my own, not a problem. I'll sleep with the door open if I have to. It's just, you know, when you've got a baby and that kind of thing. So I've really learned in the months that I've been camping in the van what I do and what I do not need. I'm going to try and survive on 100 amp hours. I've got numerous ways of charging it, and that's what I'm going to show you. I wanted to make a really efficient, user-friendly system, one that I don't even have to think about. You've got all the Bluetooth on your phone. Like I recently had a Sterling 60 amp. I got rid of that. I wanted a Victron version, not just because it's the shiny blue, but because you can keep an eye on it on your app and that kind of thing. I have left enough space in the cupboard where the battery is, in case, say I sell it to someone that does work on the road, you know, wants to charge things up and wants to get a inverter. I haven't even got an inverter. I don't need 240. The family might, but then we're on a hookup. It all goes back to that whole thing. How are you going to use it? Do not get sucked into thinking you need 300 amp hours of power if you do not. So I'll give you a quick look and let me know what you think. So here's my setup, guys. I do believe it to be an art form. That's why I've tried to keep it as tidy as possible. I've got three main ways of charging my battery. One is the B2B, which is from the vehicle battery. That's a 30 amp at the moment. I did start with a 60 amp Sterling. I've got rid of that because I like the controllability. The Sterling was good, but you kind of just selected an LED and then left you to it. Whereas with this one, you can monitor its progress and adjust the settings and things like that. I may put two of these in tandem to create a 60 amp charger. My battery is a SUPERPACK, so it does allow 100 amps of charging all at once. So if that was charging at 60 amp and my MPPT, it was a really beautiful day and I was getting 30 amps from that, I wouldn't fry the battery. You must check the allowances of your battery. If you've got two batteries in tandem, you probably will be absolutely fine because you're basically halving it. MPPT, I've got 400 watts on the roof. I will show you that. It's not very good. I've got a massive problem with that, and I will show you that in a second. Not going to get too obsessed with that though, because the sun in this country is a bit as and when. It's not totally reliant on that. And then I've got a 30 amp smart charger. When we're on a hookup, we can charge straight from 240 into the battery, and basically everything, all of my different chargers. So for example, two wires from the battery go into this does its job, it goes there and then finds its way to the battery. When I plug in 240, it goes through this, through the links into the battery. MPPT wires from the solar panels, they actually go to an isolator first. You must make sure you put an isolator on, because the other day I disconnected my battery via that main switch there and everything was still able to run. It was such a lovely day that the max fans, everything, the fridge was still running directly from the sun. Now I wasn't doing any wiring necessarily, but if I was, say I disconnected a fan or the fridge, I would have got a poke, no doubt, because it was still actually being supplied with battery power. So here's my solar array, guys. This so I've got 4 times 100 watt Renogy panels. This one's nice and out in the open, so when I tested that independently, I got up to 90 watts, which on a beautiful day, which is about right. You don't, I mean, sometimes they overachieve, but to get 90 watts out of a 100 watt panel, that's all right. But these panels, when I test them, hopefully you can see, just because the first inch is tucked under that roof rack, because I was trying to avoid my max fan. I'm trying to fit on as much as possible up here. Excuse the wires, I've been testing. That's where I'm going with this. And excuse the wind. Each one of these, on a beautiful day, and the panels were clean, I got about 55 watts out of them max. So it would almost be better to lose a panel and bring them out in the open and have 3 100 watt panels that are all out in the open, rather than 3 100 watts and a single over there that are shaded. And a way of testing it, I rigged them all up together. I mean, I max out about 300 watts, which isn't bad, but that's me losing 100 watts. I cast a shadow over with my hand because the sun was pointing from this direction. I cast a shadow just by putting my hand over, and it lost about 100 watts. It's so surprising, even though it's only like the first inch that's covered. It's so surprising the impact, the negative impact that can have. So if you can, keep them out in the open to maximize your array. So to optimize space in the garage area, I actually put the 240 fuse board this side. That's the solar isolator, so the solar wires come down from the panels into that isolator and then go the other side into the MPPT. So I know if I turn my 12 volt isolation switch off and that, I can work on the system and not get a nasty surprise. That there is where I've plugged in the Shore charger, the Shore power charger, the Victron 30 amp IP22 I think it is. Yeah, and I brought you in here just to show you that obviously I've got some storage space here, but that is actually predominantly for if the new owner, if there is one, did insist on having a couple more batteries, he could strap down a couple more batteries in here if he was a bit more off-grid or wanted to then run an inverter. That's bad England. So if he wanted to run an inverter, he might want a bit more power. So plenty of space for it. So it's kind of future-proofing it. Please go ahead and subscribe, guys. I'm trying to bring you bits of information that people seem to leave out for one reason or another. You know, the theory behind this video is not to show you how things work, but more to think about what you do and what you don't need, and not get sucked into just getting too carried away. See what you can and can't get away with. But yeah, 80% of my viewers don't actually subscribe, so go ahead and subscribe, and then you will not miss the next episode. Now then, so my solar has got issues, like I said, and I'm not obsessing about the amount of watts that I can and can't get. I'll do what I can to make it better, obviously, but I'm not obsessing about it. In this country, you don't get offered beautiful sunshine all that much, because I can always start the engine and charge the batteries that way. And I know some people are going to say some campsites don't like that, but going back to what I said about the van being for two different purposes, if I'm on a family friendly site that doesn't like that kind of thing, I'll be hooked up, so I won't need to start the engine. And if I'm parked in a random field miles away from anyone, or with the 4x4 boys, everyone's starting their engine anyway. So that's what I mean. I've found this lovely balance of ticking all the boxes with 100 amp hours of power. I think it's going to last. I've done 2 overnighters. It has been nicer weather at the moment, but I've got so many different ways of charging it efficiently. I would hope that I could get to 1 o'clock the next afternoon, easy peasy. Worst case scenario, fire the engine for an hour, or not even an hour, use it as a bit of a generator, and then I'm back up to a decent voltage. I literally use a fridge, and if it's hot, a max fan. I've got 2 max fans at the moment, and if you have them on max, they can use a bit of power, but one of them is going to be swapped out for air conditioning. So yeah, a fridge, which is a high efficiency fridge, probably when the compressor kicks in, it's about 2 amps it uses, but that's probably 2 amps for 2 minutes of an hour. The rest depending on how high you want to crank it up and things like that. So I'm trying to survive on 100 amp hours. I think it's going to be absolutely fine. I have bought a lot of expensive stuff for the sake of having 100 amp hours of power, but I think gone are the days of a split charge relay that gives you the charger and all the wiring for 70 quid. I don't think that's the way forward anymore. I think buy the right gear and just see how you get on. With a system like this, it's great because you can add to it or you can take away. Just always put a big enough wire in. That's what I would say. So I may be going to 60 amps, for example, and as luck would have it, I've got a spare 110 amp wire that runs from the battery in the front to here, so they can actually run independently from the battery. Bit of luck on my part. So yeah, there's my electrical setup, and like I say, please don't get obsessed with the people that spend absolutely thousands and thousands on a system. It's absolutely fine and they are absolutely great if you're going to use it. I worked out that I'm not going to use it. When I had 300 amp hours of AGM power, I never saw it below 80%. So it means I've got to think about it a little bit more, make sure I keep my eye on the progress. So I may just buy that second battery, but at the moment I'm going to try and survive. So there it is. Join me next time. I've got something very exciting coming for the van. I can't wait. I'm teaming up with a guy and yeah, really excited about the future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.